panel discussion on enhancing citizen services. I'd like to invite our session chair, Mr. Ravi Saxena, to kindly join us. I'd also like to invite our eminent panelists for this session, Mr. Vipin Tyagi, Director C.Dot Government of India, Mr. Aman Nagar, National Head Government Vertical Personal Systems Group HP India, Mr. Anish Dhawan, Regional Manager VMware, Mr. Altaf Haldi, MD Kaspersky, Ms. Monali Handa, Director Sales and Computing, Mr. B.K. Panda, Additional Central PF Commissioner Employees Provident Fund Organization, and Mr. Sameer Chaudhary, General Manager IT from Power Grid Corporation of India Limited. We are going to have this panel discussion for approximately 30 minutes, and we request our panelists to stick to their time. Ladies and gentlemen, with these words, I'd like to request our session chair, Mr. Saxena, to kindly take over.
So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's always a challenge to sustain the interest and patience of the audience in the last session, and particularly when it's late by almost 50 minutes. So, it is the task of this panel to ensure that we finish as quickly as we can, so that I guess some dinner is laid out and people get it at due time. The topic for discussion today is enhancing delivery of services. I would just make a few points about it right in the beginning to set the ground. Why do we need to think about enhancing delivery of services? Is because services have been getting delivered over last hundreds of years, and today, if there is such a consciousness for enhancing it, it's just because it has become feasible because of technology, and B, the aspirations of people have increased, and there is an imperative need to fulfill those aspirations. The chief guest today, Mr. R.C. Mishra, mentioned about the digital divide. I strongly believe that ICT revolution, as a matter of fact, is going to cause a much larger divide than what the Industrial Revolution did 100 years ago. Industrial Revolution swept the power to produce in a few hands, and therefore the capital, it flew in a few hands. So there were the people who had the capital, and there were the people who did not have the capital, and that gave birth to the communism, the capitalism. And we see hundreds of years down, more than 100 years down the line, that the impact of that is still being felt. ICT revolution, which is giving the power of information in few hands and keeping a large cross-section of population bereft of that power, is going to create a larger divide. And therefore, the question of enhancing service delivery is intricately connected with the question of digital inclusion. And I think the panel could comment on this, whether they agree that digital inclusion would be a prerequisite for enhancing the service delivery. And coming from there, we need to think as to what are the essentials for creating digital inclusion. As of today, the situation is that we have more than 900 million mobiles in the country. We have about 40 million internet connections, with and 5 persons using each connection. We can take it that not more than 200-300 billion people are connected with the net. Services which are getting delivered through the net can be shared only by about 2 crore people of this country. There is, on the other hand, an increasing, Mr. Ravi Shankar actually mentioned that bandwidth is GDP, that each 10% increase in connectivity would lead to more than 1.3% increase in the GDP of the country, which also talks about a direct connection between poverty and digital inclusion. So digital inclusion is what is the challenge for carrying out digital inclusion, for bringing in effect digital inclusion. We need to understand the scenario. The scenario today is that 60%, more than 60% population lives in the rural areas. Rural areas, until National Optical Fiber Plan comes into effect, is largely disconnected. I come from a state where fortunately that is not the case, which is simply because the aspirations of people have compelled the government to think in terms of creating a connected Gujarat. We thought of creating a broadband connection for each village, and when we looked around for the footprints of the service providers, we figured out that out of 18,000 villages, not more than 8,000 villages had this connectivity. So we created a VSAT network, took the bandwidth from the service provider, pumped it to the satellite, and got the 18,000 villages connected on a broadband which is called eGram. We have a wide area network which connects all the districts and the talukas, but it's not only that, it is 5,000 offices across the state and almost 40,000 nodes which exist on this wide area network. Yesterday only there was a review going on in the Department of IT on the effectiveness of the e-governance in various states. And we figured out 2.2 crore transactions take place electronically in Gujarat as against other states which are still counting in just a few lakhs. So we have been able to reach somewhere, but having reached somewhere, the feeling, the acuteness of this fact that there is such a long way yet to go becomes even more important. What you need basically to brood upon is, as I like to say, the DNA of transformation, the devices, the networks, and the applications, which I like to call DNA, and that the devices, networks, and applications have to evolve in a manner that they become accessible to the common man. The size of the situation, the proportion of the situation is that today you have just about 3% penetration of internet in this country, as against more than 60-70% in most of the developed world. You have a large cross-section of poor people who get no services whatsoever, much less electronic services. In India, there is this syndrome of urban poverty. People migrate over to the urban areas, live on the platforms, live on the platforms and the footpaths, and we have no way to figure out how to connect those. So, given this kind of a situation, how do we how do we empower these people? How do we deliver services electronically to the entire cross-section of population as the challenge? And I think we initiate this discussion now on some of these issues and see how we come to a conclusion as a result of this. Since we have to finish in another 20 minutes maybe, I'll request very quick reactions. First from Mr. B.K. Panda. Mr. B.K. Panda is Additional Central Provident Fund Commissioner of the Employees Provident Fund Organization based out of Delhi. Mr. Panda, your comments on this?
Respected Chairman of this session, I am looking after the IT division. I am heading the EPFO IT division for the whole country. And EPFO, as far as the corporate world, as you know, all are associated with EPFO and all are scared of EPFO office, LU. And today, for last, say, so many years, we are trying to give the service. Earlier, it was a inspector-oriented kind of thing, mentality. The change management was a very difficult task to bring in the organization, and we have tried last 2-3 years how to provide these services. First, we gave this small service for months together. The claim settlement, the people used to transfer from one company to another, one place to another. They were changing and settling the claims instead of transferring their account, because the transfer of account is a very tedious process in the present system. And so we wanted to give small services like showing the PF balances in the website. So we want you today, if you want to know your PF balance, you can just put your PF number and give your mobile number. SMS comes to, we have used the mobile governance coupled with the IT initiatives in the department, in the EPFO. So you get the PF balance in your mobile. And if you have submitted your claim forms, and you can see all the status of your claim forms in the website. What is the status, whether it is approved, rejected, or it is under process. And we have used the National Electronic Fund Transfer System, that is NEFT, so that if you give, along with your claim form, a copy of your checkbook or cross check or your account, that IFSC code, then the money is transferred to your bank account instantly within say 12 hours or less than that. Earlier we used to send through the envelopes. The checks used to be signed, the checks used to be put into the envelope, and it used to be sent to the person. So it used to take say 15-20 days even after the settlement of the claims. Now it takes say 12 to 13 hours or even less than that. So, but the penetration of this information has not reached the people much. That's why the percentage of this NEFT payment, though we have taken this initiative for last 1 year, the percentage is only 60%. It is not improving more it is not coming up to 100% because the people are not knowing that this facility is available in EPFO. And recently from 1st of April, we have started one electronic, that online submission of your challan and returns. The companies were having around 6 lakh employers in the country, 6 to 6.5 lakh employers in the country. They were submitting the returns separately and paying the subscriptions of the PF separately. From 1st of April, we have started that both, they have to upload the returns online. They are not required to prepare so many 5 to 6 types of return forms in paper return forms and come to EPF office and make to stop all those things, to stop the footfalls in our EPF office. We started this online submission of your returns. The returns are submitted on the line. Then the challan is popped off according to the whatever the return is there. You can take a printout of the challan and go to any SBI bank. SBI is our sole EPF's sole banker. You can go to any bank, SBI bank, and deposit your check, and you will get instantly. Suppose on the clearance of your check, you get the SMS. The employer gets this SMS, and while for doing this, the employer has to register, so that the employer gets all the instant informations and instructions or any circulars through email or the mobile numbers. And once that money is realized in the bank, the instantly that amount for whom he has deducted for the subscription is accounted in his bank account. Earlier, we used to wait for the year end. At the end of the year, the employers, they used to give the details of the employees, and we call it a 3A form. Then only the account was updated. So for 4-5 years, the accounts of our subscribers are not updated. So people, whatever they were getting the PF balance in our website, it was 4 years old or 3 years old. It was not updated. But today, it is immediately uploaded, and the employer can download the bank, that annual account statement of his employees next day.
How many people are taking the advantage of this system?
This has started, this we are having 6 crore, yeah. This service is for the 6 crore subscribers in the country. 6 crore, out of 6 crore, there are about 6.5 lakh, as I said, the employers, out of which last month around 1 lakh 20,000 people employers have availed this facility. Then this month we have made it mandatory. All the 6 lakh employers have to submit online and take this facility.
So this facility, all the employees have access to devices through which they can avail of this. So I would request the panelists to please focus on this area instead of describing the details of the systems put in place as to how the benefit is getting incurred. What are the impediments in enlarging the cross section, which is intended to be the target group to be benefited. We have Mr. Vinit Gupta, Director of CDOT. CDOT has been an organization very much a part of the history of the telecom revolution that India has seen through, and a huge degree of empowerment that has taken place in this country. And as a result, this is one case in point where how connectivity has directly led to growth in GDP. CDOT is one of the organizations which is a living proof of that. I'd request Vinit to talk about what are the issues which are there in the way of enhancing the services to common man.
Thank you, sir. It is my privilege to be here and really share with you. The whole thing is that we have to elevate our vision of inclusion of 400 to 500 million people who can't read and write in any language. Forget about English as a language, which is the language of the computerization. 2 years back, I was taken aback by the sheer intellect that these people hold. They are probably, some of those are more intelligent than us. Only thing, they don't know English, they don't know language, and that keeps them away. Consequently, I started a center for computing for digitally underprivileged. And why I'm calling it digitally underprivileged? Because I met Professor Abdul Kalam, our honorable president, past president. And he said, don't call them illiterate, because that's an insult to them. So I changed from illiterate to underprivileged. Today, the technology has reached a level where it can imitate human being. So rather than eyes, I can put a camera, and that can analyze anything that is written on a piece of paper. Today, television has become so pervasive, 450 million houses are having television. And what I did, I asked these 8 young engineers coming out of the National Institute of Technology in IIT, and they built something called DRAX. What it does is that all the information that's available on internet, on any website, can be accessed by anybody who has never seen a computer by simply showing a card, which can be printed locally. There are only 2 interfaces in that, 0 to 9 pad for printing a card, and a card in front of the camera. And the system was deployed through the NGOs, because I thought that will be the right route, because they understand the psychology of the people. And the results are very, very pleasant. 3 lakh people visited a Krishi Mela where we were demonstrating it. And there was a crowd, one over the other. They wanted to know what government has done for us. So this is the power of IT that is totally unexploited. That's why I say, sir, your vision and the people here, we have to raise our bar to another level. There are 3 categories of the ICT. In fact, ICT is merging together. After the brain, the most fertile place in the world is networks. Why I'm not using internet? Because networks are beyond the internet. Internet stops at website and all of that. Networks are carrying video. They're doing operation remotely. Education, which is getting delivered. The video is going to be dominant player. So what we have done today, CDOT has a technology that will give every village guaranteed bandwidth of 1 gigabit. This technology has gone to 10 manufacturers. They are Indian manufacturers, so it's not going to be like before where we have only 3% participation coming from India. It will be manufactured by Indian hands, and it will get hopefully deployed in the Indian networks. And that is only the part of the process. So there will be participation of all strata of society into that. But more importantly, unless it opens up the doors for the entrepreneurs, who can come out of the business model which we have not heard of, who are willing to deploy the clouds. then, real vision of India will emerge. And that's the path that I will propose. And that's where we are today. Technology is no barrier. This room alone can solve all the problems that we have talked about. We have to put the vision, we have to put the action plan. Thank you, sir.
Wonderful, wonderful, Mr. Tyagi. Can we, I think, yeah, that deserves a good hand, a big hand. What he's talked about is how technology is not a barrier for meeting with the aspirations of people. We have Aman Nagar. He is country manager, government vertical, personal systems group of HP. Government vertical, I'm sure a lot of perceptions about government and the people. I'd like you to react on the issues which have been raised until now.
So first of all, thank you very much, sir, for giving me this opportunity. In fact, it's been a very humbling experience for me today, hearing all these senior and learned people like you talking about the ICT and the vision of increasing the scope of the social inclusion, the financial inclusion, and the infrastructure inclusion of Government of India plans and the other things that we just heard. I firmly believe and agree with all the gentlemen here that we as technology companies have a very great role to play in enhancing the delivery of the services that are available to the common man today. Because unless until technology plays an important role, we will not be able to achieve the growth at the rate which we want to achieve. We today are one of the most exploding economies across the world, but at the same time we are also plagued with a lot of inbuilt inefficiencies, a lot of legacies that we have carried for past so many years. But at the same time, we are also fortunate to be in an era where we have companies like my own company, Hewlett Packard, who has been involved, who has had success in most developed countries like United States, United Kingdom, and other parts of Europe.
I'll just interrupt you here to ask you one question. If the digital inclusion has to acquire the shape that the size of India and then the 3rd billion and the 4th billion require, do you foresee technology becoming cheaper, technology becoming affordable for being deployed for the masses that it is required?
Yeah, so it has been a trend. It has been in fact a trend. When I started my career about 20 years back, the cost of the ordinary PC, I'll just take an example from there and take it forward with how the technology has become more affordable. And the cost of the PC which is today available and the laptops which is available is drastically different. Similarly, the kind of other technological advances that we have made have only, with the spread of in geographies and the number of people, adopting it. Say, take the example of mobile phones. See, when the mobile phone started in somewhere around 1995, 96 kinds, the one phone call used to cost about 16 rupees for one particular call. Today it is less than 50 paisa. The mobile phones used to be as expensive as 20,000 rupees, minimum 1 lakh rupees, 75-80,000 rupees. So now they are so much affordable. So technology is becoming more affordable, and it is going to be.
Thank you. We have from now 2 security companies, Kaspersky, Altaf. One of the issues along with technology deployment is whether it is safe, whether it is going to retain privacy of the people, or is going to convert every human into a digital being. What role the security plays in making technology deployable smoothly and across such large cross section as is required for?
Thanks, sir. Definitely security is one of the most critical key. When you talk about all these kind of citizen charter initiatives that are happening, security becomes the most imperative thing, the most important thing, for one simple reason, because the people who are actually going to use it, if they are not able to ensure that whatever they are doing, at the back of the mind, if they think, like we have the best of citizen charter services available, but if I think that, okay, fine, it is not secure if I enter my data,